Days. So I'm just going to move a little bit closer to the camera here, and we're going to be playing with some applique shapes today that I have never played with before. So this will be a wonderful opportunity to play with some applique shapes that may fit into your desired quilts. Now, I love to do appliquéd quilts, but I love to make them in a faster, easier way. So this is an attempt to make the quilt that I need to make next using my rotary cut applique tools. But I want to tell you what happened. Last night, I had demo days, and we had a little bit of trouble with our cameras. So we are down a couple of cameras today, and so I'm working on my cell phone only. So I'm bringing my workstation up close to you so you can see what I'm doing, even though I can't use my second camera. So what we're going to be trying today is to make some clamshell shapes. I was at a friend's house over this past week. I was in South Carolina, and she lives in beautiful Pawleys Island, South Carolina. And everywhere we were noticing these beautiful clamshells as a symbol of Pawleys Island. She pointed them out as they were hanging from mailboxes, and they were decorating the outside of people's homes. And there was a jewelry company making these necklaces out of these clamshells. So I looked up the name of the shell, and of course I can't remember the Latin name, but the shell is very distinctive in that area. And they're tiny little clamshells. But they really have a very unique texture and look to them. And I thought it might be fun to try to replicate that clamshell design that I saw and make it into maybe a pillow or even a little set of coasters or something like that for my friend that lives in Pawleys Island. So the purpose of today's class is not for you to make the clamshells with me, but it is for you to explore what you can do with rotary cut applique. So I have a little bit of work to do. I need to get some fabric ready. I need to get some fused fabric ready so that we can play with this clamshell shape. And I'm noticing from last night I put my my Misty Fuse across the room. So I'm going to have to go and grab that Misty Fuse. And I'm just going to fuse up some tan or some beige fabrics, because this is more in keeping with the color of the clamshells that I need to make. But you know what? We're just going to play this morning. So what I'm really going to want to do, I don't mind playing with some unfused fabric while we're just trying to figure out what's happening with these clamshell shapes. So let me grab some fused fabric that I already have, or even some unfused fabrics just to play. And then once I'm happy with my applique shapes, then I'll make them out of the actual color that I want to make them in. So when I'm working with my tools and I'm trying to design new applique shapes, I'm just gonna work on, some scraps of fabric that I have here in my sewing room. So the concept that I'm thinking is I kind of need a triangular shape for that clamshell. So we're going to figure it out together, because what I love to do is I love to figure these things out together, and that way it kind of encourages you to do the same. You can figure things out even if you're not sure how to make them yet. So I'm just going to cut a triangle shape. And I think I want it to be kind of long and skinny like this. Yeah, almost an equilateral triangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to round the top and I'm going to round the corners to try to make that clamshell shape. So that'll be step one. And then step 2 is we want to make some kind of rings that go on that clamshell to show the growth rings on the shell. And in this particular type of shell, they're really prominent. So I'm going to be, let's see, I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to you so you can see what I'm doing right there. So we want these rings to be really prominent. And so I've got some other colors here that we can add in order to make those rings. Now, of course, I'm working with just scrap fabrics here, so the colors are probably going to be atrocious. But you get the idea that when we're playing, we don't want to use our good fabric. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to grab my Hearts and More tools. So let's get those up front and center. We're going to grab our Hearts and More tools and even our Leaves Galore tools as well, because I'm not quite sure what curves I'm going to use yet in order to make these clamshells. So I'm going to have all of my tools available right here, and I like to keep them handy in this nice little mat that I got from, well, it was from Joan Ford originally, and I believe that she sold this design to a different company. So I don't know who's making it now, but this nice little rubber mat keeps all of my tools handy and right where I need them, including my Grace True Grips that I've got on the back of the tools, my 28mm rotary cutter, which always comes in handy when I'm cutting around curves. So everything is right here where I need it. Now, let's get started with this kind of triangle shape. Well, it's pretty much symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter which way I turned it. And the clams that I'm thinking of are pretty symmetrical, so I think that works. And now I'm just going to take the 4 or the 3 corners of that triangle, and I'm going to rotate, I'm going to cut off the corners of that triangle to make them rounded. So I'm grabbing my Hearts and More template B, and I'm going to round this top corner, and then I'm going to round these 2 bottom corners. And I don't think I'm quite getting the shape I want yet, but this is the idea. Let's see what happens when I round those corners. And maybe what I don't want is everything to be symmetrical. So where I rounded 2 of my corners with the 2.5 inch curve, I then went and used the 1 5/8 inch curve on one of those corners just to make it look a little bit different. So we're not there yet. We don't have a clamshell for sure. So maybe what I needed to do, instead of cutting straight edges on my clam, maybe I needed curved edges. So let's go ahead and round out those edges. So I'm going to start with the 5-inch tool. And let's see what I can do with that one. I'm going to curve this one here. Now, we're not starting with a triangle anymore. I'm starting with that curved triangle. So we're doing this in stages. And then what I like to do is go back and modify the whole design so that quilters can figure this out. But the first time I figure things out, you're working along here with me. We're figuring it out together. So this time, I made a curved triangle, but I made the triangle edges with the 5-inch curve. And guess what? I like that a whole lot better. In fact, that's almost the right shape for my clam right there. So boy, that's a really good start. So I'm just going to round the top edge of that clam. And I'm going to use the 2.5, I'm going to use that small side of template B in order to round the top of this clam. And then I'm thinking maybe I need to make this clam a little bit more asymmetrical. It's pretty symmetrical right now, and I think I want it a little bit asymmetrical. So I love the way it's looking. I think this looks almost like the Pawleys Island clam symbol. So what am I going to do next? Well, The ones that we saw hanging from mailboxes were separate pieces of wood to indicate the growth rings on that clam. So what if I just take that clamshell right now and I separate those growth rings with my 5-inch curve? Now, the growth rings are going to be all different sizes, so there's not any particular width that I'm making these. So I'm just cutting up on that clamshell, and maybe they get a little bit smaller as I go up. And I'm not sure how far I want to go, but those are all the 5-inch curves. And that curve might be just a little bit too symmetrical. It looks kind of nice, actually. Let's put that on the brown fabric and see what we've got so far. So it kind of looks nice. I like the fact that those growth rings can be separated, and that really gives me the look of that particular species of clam. And I was worried about the 5-inch curve being too repetitive. If I do all of them with the 5-inch curve, then they really are very, very symmetrical. And I'm not quite sure I like it so symmetrical. But what's nice is that because these curves are so gentle, I can kind of widen that curve down at the bottom here as I go, so I can make them less symmetrical than they were initially. Well, now when I'm separating these rings, I'm finding that I'm losing that clamshell shape. When it was all together, the clamshell shape was kind of nice. But when I'm separating it, it ends up looking more like a cone rather than a clam. So I think we need to accentuate that clamshell shape. So maybe the sides need to be a little bit more graceful and the bottom needs to be a little bit wider in order to get started. So let's try that again. Let's make one side out of our 5-inch curve. Okay, then we're going to make another side out of our 6-inch curve. Let's see, here's one with a 6-inch curve, and I'm probably not going to guess right, but let's see. If I do my 5 and then my 6, I wonder if I can connect those two together with an 8-inch curve. So let me get that 8-inch curve in there. Wow, that seems kind of big. But you know, it's all just playtime. This is all just an opportunity to play with these shapes and see what's gonna work. So let's see, I'm gonna cut this one down a little bit. So now what I have is I have my 5-inch side cut with the 5-inch tool. Now it's not 5 inches long anymore. I actually trimmed it down, but then I have my 6-inch side, and then I have my 8-inch side. So each one of those curves is now different. So let's see what I can do with that clam. I kind of like the shape of that one, and it's almost rounded up at the top, kind of the way I want it to be. But I was just thinking maybe we want to, no, it's rounded pretty well. I think that looks pretty good. So now if I separate these layers to make those rings, those growth rings on the clamshell, then I need to use the 8-inch curve because that's the one I cut this bottom edge with. So let's make the growth rings a little bit shallower. I think with the 5-inch curve, I made them about 1/2 inch wide, and that just seems a little bit too wide for me. I'll be able to make more of them if I make them a little narrower. And what if I switch from the 8-inch curve now to the 6-inch curve? So it gets a little curvier as we go up. And then maybe I'm gonna switch from there to the 5-inch curve, so it's even more curvy at the top of the shell. I have no idea what this is gonna look like. Your guess is as good as mine. And I don't know if this is gonna be my final design or not. but we're really just having some fun and playing today. So let's go ahead and put this on a little darker fabric so we can see what that all looks like. So we're gonna put our top layer. Let's see if I've got some scissors because my blade is not quite as sharp as it needs to be and I missed a spot. Okay, I just missed a thread. So there we go. We've got our first layer here. That's using the 5-inch curve. We've got another one with the 5. And I like that they're not all symmetrical, right? By using the 5 and then the 6, they end up a little wonky. And I think wonky is good because these clamshells are not perfect. When you're looking for clamshells on the beach, you'll find so many that are not perfect. And of course, the goal is always to find a perfect shell as I'm walking on the beach, but you know, it never truly happens. They are all God's creatures and not everyone is absolutely perfect. It's been worn by the sea. It's probably gotten eaten by a seagull. There are definitely imperfections in those shells, but the idea is there. The concept is there. What I'm not liking particularly is that when you cut these growth rings, they end up with hard edges, but the idea is good. Now, because I've separated them, I think I'm going to remove a couple of rings so that it keeps that clamshell shape. If I keep all of the rings, it gets extended because I've got the little bit of brown in between. And I think I'll probably narrow down that brown so it's just a hint under that shell. And of course, my shelly colors are probably going to be more beiges, more pinks. I have a particular thread that I'm thinking of, and it's called Shell. And it's from the Tootie thread line. And that one called Shell, let's see if I can find it. I don't think I have the exact right one. Okay. But this is the idea. It's all of these beiges and browns and almost pinks, and that would be a good color combination for these shells. So I would bring my Tootie thread over to my fabric lines and see what's going to bring those colors into the shell. And I wouldn't be making a blue shell, I'd be making a tan shell on, or maybe a brown shell on a tan sandy background, so it looks like the shell is sitting alongside the seashore. So there we have it. I think that that's pretty close to the look that I'm going for. But I don't like the fact that these are all very sharp along the edges. So I probably would do a little surgery on these. And I'm probably going to take each one of these and just with my scissors, I probably can't do this with the rotary cutter because they're just too tight, these little corners. I just want to round off these corners. So as I'm doing that, and we're going to play with this together, I want to talk to you about when I'm playing with rotary cut applique. My goal for rotary cut applique is to make your life easier. So if this seems easy to you to play with your tools and do things this way, then absolutely, I want you to play with your tools. That's how I do everything, by playing with my tools. But if this seems harder than tracing your drawn shapes and cutting it out with scissors, then I absolutely want you to do it the easiest way for you. I am not the kind of designer that insists that you do things my way. I love it when playing with the tools makes you happy. I know that playing with the tools makes me extremely happy. There's nothing better than playing here in my sewing room and figuring out a way to make this adorable little clamshell using my tools as a guide. And then eventually I'll make this into a little pattern and I'll show people how to make it with the rotary cut applique process. But My goal for you is to find the easiest way possible to do applique. And if that's not with your rotary cutter, that's okay. I want you to find the method that works best for you. Good morning, Elaine. It's okay. You're a little bit late. We're just making our little clamshells here that we talked about in my newsletter. But no worries. And Kathleen Kerber, welcome. Nice to see you. Dead Fries, hi. How are ya? So no worries, you're not late. You are right on time to have some fun today with us, Elaine. So what I plan to do, and I mentioned this in my weekly newsletter. By the way, if you're not on my weekly newsletter list, just go to my website, and right on the front page, there's a little white block that says, sign up for the weekly newsletter and get this pattern. And it is the orange peel pattern. So here we go. We have just rounded the edges of all of these layers of our clam. And I had to do that with my scissors because the rounding is so teeny tiny that I could not do that as well with my rotary cutter. So I was just explaining to the ladies here and gentlemen that I never want to make applique harder than it needs to be. So if cutting with your scissors is easier for you, then cut with your scissors. But if cutting with the rotary cutter is easier for you, like it is for me, then I'm gonna cut with my rotary cutter. So I'm designing this little clamshell for my friend who lives in Pawleys Island, South Carolina. These clamshells are everywhere, and it is the symbol of Pawleys Island. So I wanted to make this cute little clamshell for my friend. I might make a pillow with it. I might make, who knows, some placemats for her kitchen. But the idea is to take a basic triangle shape, cut it out with my tools, and design that clamshell that I'm looking for the Pawleys Island clamshell. So the whole point of this demonstration is for you to find ideas. If you see designs that have these beautiful natural curves, that's the time that you can get out your rotary cutter and your Leaves Galore or your Hearts and More tools and just start playing. Now, also in my newsletter, I asked you if you had any affirmations for quilters. I would like to start a series of affirmations for quilters that encourage us to be more positive about our quilting and more positive about our approach to quilting, and definitely more positive about our results from our quilts. Now, I know that it's awfully, it is basically in our DNA. It's in our nature to be not self-promoting, to play down our talents, to play down our accomplishments, and not to feel like you're self-promoting or patting yourself on the back. Unfortunately, some of us have taken that a little too far. And what happens is we end up being negative to ourselves instead of pointing out our positive qualities. So I understand that we don't want to self-promote, we don't want to pat ourselves on the back, and it seems awkward to do that. However, many of us have gone in the total opposite direction. And we're so hard on ourselves, and we never give ourselves a compliment. We never we never give ourselves the regard that we deserve, or the kudos that we deserve for doing the amount of beautiful, wonderful work that quilters do. So whether you are holding your quilts up in front of a quilting guild and showing all of your friends your beautiful work, or you're sharing it with your family and your friends, we tend to downplay the exquisiteness of our work and we tend to point out all of our mistakes and all of the problems and all of the struggles that we went through to get there. So I would like to ask all of you to think of positive affirmations for quilters. When we put ourselves in the mindset of being positive towards ourselves, then it actually makes us happier people that more people want to be around. Who wants to be walking next to Eeyore every day of your life, and Eeyore is talking all the doom and gloom and all of the negative things that are happening around him? Wouldn't you want to be much more like Tigger? Tigger is the happy-go-lucky, bouncy, happy guy who everybody wants to be friends with. And Eeyore has a little black cloud hanging over him all the time. When we tend to be negative, and especially talking negatively about ourselves, it's not a quality that attracts people. It actually puts people off when you are negative towards yourself. And I see this all the time at my quilting guild. These beautiful ladies will hold up an amazing quilt and proceed to tell us all of the problems with their quilt. So I am on a mission to help people stop being that negative Nelly, to stop being that Eeyore, and to really take pride in what we do without being prideful, to be happy about our accomplishments without being self-promoting. That all starts in our mind, and our mind is a funny thing. Whatever you think about is what happens. Whatever your mind repeats over and over and over again, your subconscious mind repeats to you, that's what you display to the world. So if we can change a little bit to a more positive spin on what our mind is thinking all the time, then we will be the person that attracts other people, the person that everybody else wants to be around. Instead of being the Eeyore, we can be the Tigger. So I'm collecting a series of affirmations, specifically affirmations geared towards women and geared towards quilters. And I will eventually put together a blog post with all of those affirmations. So let's get started. I know that I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. I can take a theory of making a little clamshell. And don't these look just like the little clamshells that I found on the beach last week? That shape is just about perfect. I know that I can have an idea in my mind and I can make it come to fruition when I play with my applique. I know that if I see a quilt in a magazine or on Pinterest, I know that I can get that result because I'm growing my skills every single day. Now, I might not be there right now, but I'm constantly adding and increasing my skills so I can make any quilt I dream of. My quilts are beautiful and perfection is overrated. Perfection is not something that I strive for. Who needs a perfect quilt to keep them warm, to make them happy, and to make them smile when they open it up from that gift package that I gave them at their birthday, at a christening, at a baby shower? Nobody needs a perfect quilt, and the only person that sees the imperfections is you. So these are the types of affirmations that I am looking to collect and curate and put together for a blog post for all of you. So if you have some positive affirmations for quilters, I would love to hear them. If you don't strive for perfection, I'd love to hear that one again. I don't think that what you wrote is what you intended to write. I do strive for perfection. All of us should strive for perfection, but we should not be disappointed when we come just a hair short of perfect. Perfection is not for the average person, right? We're striving for perfection, but we actually never reach perfection. Nobody ever will. Perfection is a fallacy. And if that's what you are always aiming for, and you're always disappointed when you don't reach perfection, then you're always going to be disappointed. And that's not the way I want you to live your life. So let's try to find some ways to reword the perfection myth. And we can strive for perfection, but actually reaching perfection is a fallacy. It's never going to happen, and I don't want you to be disappointed when it doesn't happen. So Kathleen, your mindset has been on process, not perfection. Enjoy the journey and learn. I love that. It's all about the journey. It's not just about the destination. Even though we will all get to that destination of making beautiful applique quilts, making beautiful pieced quilts, that is not the primary reason why we do this, is it? Most of us want to enjoy the journey. So thank you for that, Kathleen. Elaine says, strive for excellence. Strive for excellence. I love it. Perfection can be crippling for me, so I'm looking to learn and enjoy the process. Kathleen, that's absolutely true. I meant more like if you guys half the effort. Okay, so what, I can't see the name. It says Weissaman. I meant like if you guys be half the effort, then you suck. You got to give 100% always. Yeah, you know, I always want people to strive for that top quality level. I want my quilts to be show worthy. I want them to be gorgeous. I want them to be as high quality as I can make them. But you know what? I can strive for perfection, but I don't often reach it. So if I have some stitches that are out of line, I'm not necessarily going to take those out. If I have a cutting that's a little bit crooked, or my seams don't match up exactly right, I don't want to beat myself up over that. The level of perfection that I'm striving for depends on the project. If I am showing my quilts at a national quilt show, then absolutely, I want those quilts to be perfect or as close to perfect as I can get them. But if I'm giving this quilt, a little baby quilt, to a friend, and they don't know anything about quilting, then I'm going to lower my standards a little bit. Not that I'm not going to do top quality work, but if I make a mistake, I'm not necessarily going to beat myself up over it or start ripping out the stitches when it really doesn't matter. So let me share a little quilt with you. I'm going to grab it over here, and I showed it. Well, I showed it to my students last night, but you weren't there last night. So not necessarily. Some of you were not there last night. I made this little quilt for the pregnancy center on Cape Cod. And my friend Debbie is waiting for this quilt. I told her I was going to make a little baby quilt for her for the pregnancy center. And I came up with this little boat design during one of our Sewing and Slippers episodes. And I just absolutely love it. But I have some problems with this quilt. This row of fabrics, the row of dark fabrics right here, does not read as dark because this fabric right here is too light. And the same thing on the other end. There's a fabric that's too light and it doesn't read as a dark. Am I going to rip out all of this quilt to replace those two squares? No, I'm not. What I might do is I might take some of my Inktense pencils and do a little bit of coloring on those light color fabrics and darken them up a little bit. That's not going to be perfect, is it? It's not going to be perfection, but it is going to be a beautiful quilt that some little baby and some mom is going to absolutely fall in love with. They're not going to see the imperfections. They're going to say, what a cute little baby quilt with that sailboat on it. My uncle sails, my father sails. My grandpa sails. I want that boat, that cute little sailboat on my baby's quilt, and they're not worried about my points that don't match or my fabric that's not quite the right color. So that's what I mean, Kathleen, about striving for perfection, but not always needing things to be perfect. Yes, I want to give 100% effort all the time, but sometimes my effort falls short. And I don't want to beat myself up over that, and I don't want to criticize myself and point out all of those mistakes for everyone else to see, because most people won't even see those mistakes. All they see is a beautiful quilt. Perfection can be crippling. Yep, so I want to absolutely free you from perfection. Now, we tell ourselves these stories. We tell ourselves over and over and over again that if we're not perfect, then we are somehow less than. And this is the mindset that I want to overcome. I see it so frequently with my quilting ladies. I see it in my Ahead of the Curve membership. I see it in my gradations class. This gradations class, we finished it 2 weeks ago. Last week, we finished it last week. I started out with 35 women in the group, and I ended up with two that could come to the event. I'm sure a lot more people finished this quilt, and they've been sending me pictures of their quilts. So we didn't end up with just 2 finished quilts. But the women that were taking this class were afraid to come. They were afraid to come because they didn't meet up with their expectations. Now, there's a reason why when you take a class like this with me, you have it for life. Because I don't anticipate everybody finishing it in the first 8 weeks. It's an 8-week class. If you don't finish your class in the first 8 weeks, that doesn't mean that you've failed. That doesn't mean that your quilt isn't going to be absolutely beautiful in the end. It doesn't mean you put it in the UFO pile and you're so disappointed with yourself that you never pick it up again. And that's what I'm seeing from quilters. Quilters are so hard on themselves. Women in general, and I'm sure some men too, but women in general are so hard on themselves. So I want you to treat yourself like you would your 5-year-old self. If your 5-year-old self attempted to make this quilt and didn't finish it within 8 weeks, would you say, "Oh, what a shame, put that away, you'll never finish that"? You wouldn't talk to yourself like that. You would be kind and you would be encouraging and you would say, "Oh my gosh, you are doing such a wonderful job so far. Keep going, keep striving. You're gonna get there. Oh, but it's not perfect. My points don't match. My stitching isn't the best." Well, you know what? It's gonna be beautiful anyway. Don't give up now. Every project is a process of learning. Every step forward you take, you're going to get more confident. I'm speaking to myself like I'm my 5-year-old self. And that's the kindness, and that's the sensitivity, and that's the manner in which I want you to speak to yourself when you are striving for perfection and you don't get there. So I hope that you'll take a moment to send me an email and send me your positive affirmations. It's only by changing the way our subconscious mind speaks to ourselves. When you hear that negative, grating, demeaning voice in your head that always looks at the negative, we have to counteract that with some positive affirmations. And the more you can repeat these positive affirmations to yourself, the more they become the voice in your head. The more they take over and help you to overcome that negativity. Do you think that Tigger hears that negative voice in his head over and over and over again? No, he doesn't allow those negative thoughts in his head. He brushes them right away. Yes, they're there, but he brushes them right away. And he goes, bouncy, 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 let's have some fun, fun, fun. So he's not like Eeyore. Now, of course, Pooh is very philosophical, right? He thinks like I do. Pooh looks at the way that Tigger is always fun and always carefree, and he's thinking that's a little bit on the wrong side, right? And then he looks at Eeyore and he says, oh, my dear friend, you are so sad all the time. I wish I could make you happy. So Pooh is my perfect balance between sensitive and positive and acknowledging everybody's positive and negative feelings, but not letting them ruin his very blustery day. Oh, going back to my childhood and when I used to read those stories to my children, I always thought that those three characters were just so perfect. The ever positive Tigger, the ever gloomy Eeyore, and the philosophical Pooh. So I hope that we can bring a little bit of that Pooh spirit into our world and try to be just a tad more positive. Use these positive affirmations to drown out the negative voices that you often hear. And I hope that we can bring more peace and more joy into your quilting world by keeping it positive and keeping it fun. I'm a huge Pooh fan as well, Kathleen. You're looking forward to doing that class. Kathleen, what class are you talking about? The gradations? Is that what you're going to get into? All right. Perfection can be the enemy of done. Oh, Kat, that is so, so true. All right. Wonderful. I love these affirmations. I'm going to write down, especially perfection can be the enemy of done. That is such a great one. And I'm going to start to gather these affirmations into a blog post and probably into a printable PDF that you can all have. And so watch for that in my newsletter over the next couple of months. I'll be gathering these affirmations for a couple of months. I'll be putting it together in a blog post, and I'll probably have another Sewing and Slippers session just like today where we can remember those affirmations. We can use those affirmations. We can recite those affirmations to each other and try to keep each other in a more positive mindset. Gradations, Kathleen, good. I'm so excited for you to start that one as well. We are having a special on gradations right now. So if you weren't at my demo days last night and you didn't hear about our absolutely fabulous special on gradations, $52 off the cost of the gradations course. And if you order this week, there are more bonuses. So you can come to demo days on Wednesday. I'm going to do demo days again on Wednesday with a whole new set of applique shapes. And I'm going to be promoting our gradations course all the way up through March. However, this is the only time I've ever offered gradations at $97. I probably will never do it again. I don't know. It really depends on how successful this campaign is. I want to reach 100 people in our gradations quilt along by March. So there will be other opportunities to join gradations, but this is the only time right now that I'm offering this course for $97 plus all the bonuses. So come to demo days tonight if you want to hear more about that. I'm excited to bring 100 people through the gradations course in March if they haven't finished it already. So people are joining now. They can start the gradations course right now. And then in March, you'll get a special invitation to join us for the quilt along. So if you haven't finished, if you started your blocks, but they weren't quite perfect and you put them aside and you were mean to yourself and you said, I'm never going to finish this quilt. This is frustrating. I'm going to work with you and get you over that frustration and make sure that you have a successful journey making gradations. Now, gradations is the perfect beginning to your rotary cut applique journey. So that's why we're doing it as a special right now for $97. You'll see it on my website for that price only through this Sunday. So if you're watching the replay here and it is past October 19th, Sunday at midnight, that special will no longer be there. Now there will be other specials coming up before March, but I probably will never offer this one again for $97. All right, gradations. Oh yeah, there is a special going on, and we will have the gradations quilt along starting in March. All right, so that's it for me today. I hope that you will be more like Pooh and less like Eeyore. I hope that you will be positive with yourself and kind to yourself and talk to yourself like you're talking to your 5-year-old daughter, your 6-year-old niece, your 3-year-old grandbaby. I want you to use the same positive words that you use with them with yourself. We are all too hard on ourselves, and it makes my heart sad when I see it happening in this very group of my quilters. So go out there, be kind to yourself, be creative, have fun, strive for perfection, but don't be ruled by it. You can make beautiful quilts that keep people warm, that warm people's hearts, and that do good in the world. And they don't need to be perfect. Bye for now. Mwah. Have a wonderful day, and I hope I'll see some of you at Wednesday's demo days or in our gradations course that's enrolling now for $97 for the course and all the bonuses. So come to demo days on Wednesday and you can find out more details, or just go to my website, SuePellinDesigns.com, and you can find the gradations course. That'll be $97 through Sunday night at midnight. Thank you, everybody. Mwah. Talk to you soon.